Oh my sweet Jesus. It's Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
Why should you listen to the Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond podcast? Year after year, week after week, Lou Diamond brings you the most amazing, the most inspiring, the most forward-thinking leaders, entrepreneurs, innovators, and game changers on this planet. Lou connects with every guest so that you can listen and learn from their stories, their journeys, their failures, their triumphs, their expertise, their genius, and the things that make them thrive. Why should you listen to Thrive Loud? The real question you should be asking yourself is, why aren't you?
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, we have an executive coach specializing in elevating influential leadership, honing executive presence, building teams, and fostering stronger professional relationships. She's the founder and head of the Dayen Group, a former Wall Street leader. She empowers her clients to become better leaders, team players, and influencers. For our listeners, we're going to have a very fun conversation with Helen Dayen. Helen, how are you today?
I'm good, Lou. It's good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing spectacular. Helen is a rock star coach. She and I have known each other, I guess now, this is a long time, like 6 years, 7 years, maybe something in that realm. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of go back to Wall Street days a little bit, but in this realm, in this career, yeah, over 6, 7 years now.
Interesting times in the world that you're in from what you've been seeing. I want to give let's do a little like rewind so the listeners have an understanding a little bit about what you're focused on. Can you talk about the work that you do at the Dayen Group and specifically who and how you help the people you help?
Yeah, absolutely. And, the Dayen Group's kind of shifted what we've been doing, but the past couple of years, I want to talk about more recently. It's exactly what you said in the beginning. I'm working with leaders, both at large organizations, but especially right now, I've been getting to work with really interesting, fast, high growth companies and leaders in that space. They are changing things on a consistent basis. They are growing their teams. They are learning as they go. And that's been really energizing for me. I love working with people like that. I feel like change should be my middle name because I started my life kind of going through change in the sense that when I was 6 years old, my parents immigrated from the former Soviet Union to the US. So it was like a 6-year-old little Helen having to learn to kind of do things differently in the world, to learn a new language, to interact with kids in a different way, and seeing her parents undergo massive changes. So I think change has been a theme in my life, and it's always a driver for me to figure out how do I help other people navigate change. And especially, obviously, this past year, but just in general in my life and in my business has been very interesting for me.
Helen, let's talk about this past year. For those not familiar with the world of coaching, this has been a very interesting, call it 14, 15 months, not only from the work that probably has needed to get done, but even the work of coaching work, the business itself, because there's been such a need for checking in and helping people develop in a transformed environment. Maybe share with the listeners a little bit about what you've been experiencing over these last 15 months and what you've been seeing, just some general themes and trends, and we'll go from there.
Great question. Absolutely. Yeah. I really felt that there's been a change, and here's particularly what I've seen. First and foremost, what's gone away during the pandemic and during the fact that people are not physically together is people are not getting feedback and giving feedback in the same way that they ever could before. And so in a way, a lot of people are coming to me saying, I need to understand how I'm doing. And I need to understand how I figure out from others how I'm doing. And also, how do I share with others how I'm doing when we don't see each other? So feedback has been a big theme. So I've been doing a lot of 360s. Those people that know the world of coaching, that's a big part of kind of basic that coaches like to use is to go and interview people that you work with, to do a 360. 360s were always a big part of my business, but now I'm seeing a lot more people come to me directly and asking for it, which wasn't always the case. So that's been a change I've seen. And then also people asking me like, how do I give feedback when I don't even know what the person I'm working with actually does all day long? Like I kind of see deliverables, but I also don't see them. So that's been one theme that I've been helping people navigate. Also, I've seen a lot of people struggle to turn off, right? To take a break. Commutes are gone, which, hey, I used to commute from New York City to Connecticut, round trip, and it was painful and I hated commuting, but there are benefits to commuting in a way. You get that time where there's an official closure to your day or an official start to your day. There's a time to either be in a train or in a car to think about things without having a million things thrown at you on email, on text. So that now people are kind of craving the opportunity to kind of create space and slow down and assess, what am I doing with my month, my quarter, my day, my week? I just had a session this morning with a woman that's going to be a CFO of a really awesome, very cool company in the consumer space. And she's taking this time now before starting this new role to strategize, because she knows, she's like, I don't want to have to drink from the fire hose as soon as I get there. Yeah. I want to kind of set things up.
I'm looking at it from another perspective, and it's interesting because I've actually worked remotely way before COVID. Mm-hmm. And I probably was already regimented in the way that I work. And it's interesting, the thing that most people seem to miss is the ability to have that quick huddle and get together as a team to solve a very quick problem, which today might be a little more exhausting because you want to loop everyone in. There's a sense of making sure the communication is done right. And then you end up sitting in a screen. So it actually becomes not as productive. Have you been seeing those types of frustrations in organizations from the leaders you work with?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're spot on to bring that up, because it's just harder, right, to loop everyone in. There's people that don't love writing long emails, feel like they have to do more of that, or having to get on yet another Zoom meeting and get everyone aligned and have everyone be available, something that you could pop over and do very quickly. Now people have to find time in their calendar. So that's happening. And I read an article where they said working from home and kind of isolating at the peak of the pandemic helped stop the virus, or help slow down the virus, but it also helped slow down creativity, trust, and the speed at which we're able to work. I've heard other companies, though, and clients of mine say, no, that's not a problem. We're always getting together. We're always talking. And to be honest, Lou, I think they think that, but they don't actually realize how much disconnection there is and how trust is decreasing.
Yeah.
And I kind of see it from the inside, because I'm almost behind the curtain with each of the leaders, hearing their challenges and hearing how they think about their colleagues, whereas they're not actually saying that to each other sometimes.
So from someone who helps people better operate and manage the way they work, the way they lead, the way they think about their careers and how they develop themselves, let's look at this new world that we're starting to head to. You live in New York City, you mentioned, and we're starting we're recording this in mid-May 2021. We are starting to see this weird hybrid work world coming together. As a coach in helping leaders figure out how to handle this, what are you seeing? How do you think it's going to, where's your take on where you think this is going to go? Because it's mixed reviews across the board on what people want based on where they are in their career and their life cycle, how far away they live from where they have to get to. Give me your 2 cents on what you think about this world that we could be heading back into over the next several months and rest of the year, maybe.
Yeah, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about that, asking people what they're doing. So this is a valid question. Short answer, I don't actually know, but I have some theories. So the first is, I think that great leaders are going to do a really good job of doing two things. One is they're going to be directive enough to say, this is what we're doing, this is our expectation. And what that will actually be is going to be very company dependent. Some companies are going to say, we want this percentage of time in the office and the rest you can do whatever you want. Or some will say, you can come in whenever you want. But there needs to be a sense of clarity and very specific direction. So great leadership needs to have that. And I think what I'm seeing is a lot of people doing surveys and figuring out what their employee community wants and needs. And I think that's wonderful to do at the onset. But then at some point, you kind of have to put a stake in the ground and say, this is what we as a leadership team have decided to do. And then also empower leaders at the mid-level and mid-level management to kind of decide with their team as well.
What do you think is going to be the next challenge from the seat that you sit in? And let me give a little background to this. Look, working this past year has been very hard for leaders to make sure they keep people connected. If they over communicate, if we were, like you said, the work day didn't have this hop on a train, get to work, come home, and then return. It felt like it was going on forever. We're all sort of facing Zoom fatigue at many different points. And that's been a big concern of companies over the last year or so. You're sitting in a seat where you might have a purview. So what do you think the next big issue or problem or challenge company is going to have? We might not know what it is, but you may have a better take on where you think that bigger challenge is for companies to continue to lead and connect, which I know you're spectacular at making sure these organizations do. What do you see coming forward? Put your crystal ball out there, Helen.
Look, I think there's going to be a transition, and Lou, you can see me, but I'm actually literally rubbing my neck from the anxiety that this question brings to me, in the sense that there's going to be people together physically in an office, and some people at home. And then the following day, it'll be a different group of people in the office, right? And so what's going to happen is it's going to be this crazy mix of who said what to whom and not everyone knowing who's in the loop and who's not. And that's why I started rubbing my neck earlier, because I actually think that that's one of the things. I'm big on communication. I'm big on connection. If there isn't clear and trusting communication in an organization, it's very hard to make money, drive results, engage people, and so on and so forth. I actually think it's one of the key fundamentals. And so I think it's just gonna be hard to figure out, okay, who's in the loop, who feels included, who feels excluded, because somebody chose not to come in that day and somebody else did. And that happens, right? You think about people that travel for work and others that are more in the office. So we can probably look at examples of situations where people have been able to make that work. I just think leaders need to think about that and think about how to do that. What do you think, Leo? I'm curious what you think is the next problem.
Okay, so I'm going to quote one of my mentors from Wall Street, Harley Bassman. It's never as bad as it seems, and it's never as good as it seems. And I think that was related to markets and the way things are as you see the ups and downs on Wall Street. But it's also very true in life, right? We tend to over harp on certain issues that we have when we think things are really bad. And we also amplify and make things maybe even better and might ignore some of the issues that we don't have when things are really good. So the key is to balance it out and know in between. And if I were to look at this, I think there is something really interesting. We have the shortest term memories of any species there is out there. Forget about the fruit fly. We legitimately, we're saying, and this might not be too far off, but I remember this because I worked downtown in the financial district back in 9/11 in 2001. And I heard people say, I will never go back downtown again. I will never go back to the city again because I will never fly on a plane again. People were up and running in 2 months. I want to make that clear. We had a burning building and terrible tragedy, but our ability to say certain things and then do things were a little different. Now, this unprecedented, serious health issue, global pandemic, and has certainly changed the way we do things. I have even said myself, I'm probably never going to go on a plane without wearing a mask ever again. That might be true. But what I can tell you is, because I have flown here or there, I've also recognized that I don't believe everyone is going to want to stay every single day of the week the way they are working right now. I actually believe that we're going to probably get to some kind of 4-day thing, where people are like, I want to go in. They're actually going to want to go back into the office and want to connect and avoid exactly what you just hit, which is, I want to be in the know as to what's going on. And I know that I'm more productive when I'm there. And I want to have that end of a day that I can deal with. And I want to have the option and flexibility to know that when something is up in my personal life, I might be able to need to work from remote from home, and I could still be really productive. It might not be as communicatively as productive, but I do believe that we will get to that point, and we will, believe it or not, forget about this crazy vortex of a window that we had sooner than we think we do. That's what I think.
I think
Lou
you're
Diamond's
right.
opinion.
No, but I think you're right, Lou, because, as I mentioned, I'm in New York City, and just in a few days with the CDC news of wearing masks or not wearing masks if you're vaccinated, the whole city, which was completely masked up because it was only a few months ago that the city was hurting so deeply and all the hospitals were full and people were dying left and right. I mean, within a few days of that news, and not even, from New York City news, but CDC general news, people are not wearing their masks. So we can decide how we feel about it. Doesn't matter. But the point is, things change very, very quickly and people adapt. And that's I think that's a beautiful thing. And we'll see, the biggest issue with New York City and corporate offices in New York City is you remember the size of the elevators.
Yes.
And, I'm thinking like Mizuho, Midtown during lunch hour, there are lines to get into the elevator, and that's when they packed them in as sardines. So I think that's going to add an extra complexity to big city corporate offices as well.
Or an incentive to get more people vaccinated who aren't already. That's just, all of this. But I totally hear you. And I see someone like yourself. Obviously, I think this is also another part that I've seen. The bigger trend that will carry over is that we are now more conscious about our health probably than we ever have been, and even more aware of something that you've been focused your career on, is what's between your ears and our mental health and the state of being within that, which only makes people like yourself more in need. I mean, my goodness, you're Helen Dayen. I mean, come on, everyone needs you. Do you think that openness and willingness is something that you're seeing and hearing more about? Like, people are definitely conscious of, I definitely have to make sure my people are coached through this. I want to make sure they have the support they need. I know that they can have the development. Are you seeing that in the workplace and the clients you're dealing with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So first of all, the conversations around, how am I doing? Do I have the right state of mind? Am I taking care of myself? You and I both are from Wall Street. Think about Wall Street 15 years ago. Who would consciously call you up and say, hey, I want to make sure that I'm taking care of my mental state? I mean, that wasn't something that was okay to happen. And I don't just work with people in Wall Street. Now I'm working with people across a lot of different industries, tech, legal profession. I mentioned consumer and healthcare as well. But yeah, these like very, the typical Wall Street guys and gals are calling me to discuss that as well, like the mental well-being. And I think the piece that has been very interesting for me, it was always top of mind for me, but I think for a lot of people it wasn't, is the lack of connection that people were feeling. They're now saying, I want to reconnect with people. And by the way, not just the extroverts, but the introverts too, because they want that connection. So I think there's that, some of the things that I've seen that are tactical changes that some of the leaders I work with have started to do is walking meetings. If they are all in the city together, there's walking meetings actually happening in person, or instead of a Zoom, people are putting in their headphones and walking and talking. There's a lot more people setting boundaries around how they spend their work day and saying like, okay, there's groups that are deciding they're all going to work out at the same time during the workday. That they're all going to get outside and not set those limitations on themselves as soon.
I have a group that we Peloton ride at the same time. That's our thing.
That's fun.
I want to cover this because I think this is right up your alley. Look, you've got a thriving coaching business. You are also adaptable. Change is your gig. Maybe that's what we're going to title this episode, by the way. Huh? Change is Helen's gig.
I like that. Thank you.
But we all have days when we're not quite kicking on all cylinders and a little off our game. Helen, when you personally have trouble thriving, who or what practice do you seek to get yourself back on the thriving track?
Great question. So I'll first share what it is that typically is a trigger for me. And this is like full transparency, vulnerability galore. So you're getting the raw Helen here. So I didn't even talk about this, but I have 3 little kids that, I'm a mom to 3 little kids. So that in itself is, a big business to take care of all in itself.
How old are they at the time of this recording? What do we got?
I have an 8-year-old and 3-year-old twins. So real babies compared to.
You are in the zone.
Yes, very much. I've done a good job setting up support networks and, knowing who's taking care of them. But still, what triggers me to not feel at my best at work is usually what's going on at home, which is that I've tried to take on too much. I've lost track of organization, or I'm judging myself too harshly for the things I'm expecting of myself. So with that, the things that kind of bring me back to center is there's a couple of people in my life that listen and can basically say to me, Helen, you're being too hard on yourself. You're expecting of yourself what's unreasonable. And when you're living in the thick of having 3-year-old twins plus an awesome 8-year-old, you just kind of think this is like everyone's life is this crazy. And then it's helpful to have somebody say like, wait, can you just realize you've got a business, you've got clients you're trying to take care of, plus you've got these like 3 little monsters at home. And that's not the norm for everyone. Give yourself some credit. So I think it's just helpful to do that. And for me, a big thing is taking time. I call them strategy sessions with myself, where I don't let anyone take that time. And that time becomes I sit in Carl Schultz Park, which is a little park by my apartment. And I'll sit with a notebook, no technology, and I'll write about things like what's important to you right now. What are your priorities? What can you let go of? That's a big one for me. Like I said, that's a trigger when I have too much on my plate. And it's usually with greenery nearby, and it's usually without any technology.
I like that. I like the unplugged. And
it's like 15, 20 minutes. I can't give more because in those moments in my head is all the things I have to do. So it's usually I need to do that so that I can get back to functioning.
I think we just renamed the episode Helen Unplugged. I think that one's better than
Helen Unplugged.
Helen Unplugged works that way. Helen, let's do this. Let's do the admin part of the show. I want you to share with the listeners all the places people can find you, websites, URLs, all that stuff. We will put it all in the show notes, but it always gets more engagement from you and any special offers or things that you have, because you do have one. And I will remind you what it is if you have trouble remembering it, because I have it in front of me.
Yes, I have. I remember it. Thanks, Lou. Best way to find me is to go to our website, dayengroup.com. The link will be in the show notes, I assume. Also, I'm building my Instagram following. So Exec Coach NY is my Instagram, and LinkedIn, connect with Helen Dayen on LinkedIn. And what I'm sharing is I recently created what's called the Leadership Operating Manual. And quickly to explain what that is, I'm basically seeing a lot of high growth companies use this for their leaders. And the idea is, when you get a toaster or a fridge, you get a user manual with that appliance. Mm-hmm. So what this is basically a user manual or an operating manual for you as a leader.
Oh, I like it.
And so the end result is a one-pager that you can share with anyone that you've hired or you're starting to work with, or even people that you work for, to say, here's who I am. Here's how I like to operate. Here are my values. Here are my priorities. Here are my boundaries around my time. Here's how I communicate. And the giveaway is it's a worksheet that takes you through these things so that by the end of the completion of that worksheet, you can create a quick one-pager to share with your team. So most people know these things about them, but they won't, take the time to think through it. And so the giveaway is a downloadable worksheet that you can work through. You can also just reach out to Helen, and Helen can coach you through it. But the giveaway is that download. It's
I
called
like
the
it.
Leadership Operating Manual.
I like it. And in the spirit of plugging and unplugging, I assume the first thing we need to do is plug in the leadership person, the leader, when he goes in, right? So the operating manual works, right? That's how the toast.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. It's smart. Yeah, we need the leader to plug in and do some work first.
Excellent. Helen Dayen, ready to go down Fun Street with me here on Thrive Loud.
That's why I'm here, Lou.
I knew it.
It's just,
Okay. Share with the listeners, if you could, your all-time favorite movie that you shared with me.
My Cousin Vinny.
Okay, now why does that movie connect so much with you?
Marissa Tomei is ridiculously amazing in it. I used to quote all of it. Don't put me on the spot. I will not remember all the stuff now, but I just think it's hilarious. And especially this year, I relied on laughter as my medicine. So it's just, I can't see it enough. I still laugh. And that's all I care about is joy, right? So it's just hilarious. And maybe because he's going through change at a later age, and I connected with that on some level too.
Very true. I do like, I think I could probably quote the entire car description scene in that movie when she breaks down what the Pontiac Tempest had and didn't have at that particular point in time. It's classic stuff about positive attraction. Anyway.
Positive attraction, yeah. My favorite is the deer. Imagine you're a deer.
A deer, poor little doe. And then bam, shoots.
Bam!
She was really good. That's why she won the Oscar.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So this is the speed round of Fun Street. And let me explain how this goes, Helen. I'm going to ask you something. I want the first thing that comes to your mind. These are things that mostly lift you up, make you feel good, pump you up, might even make you thrive. Okay. Ready?
I'm a thinker, but I'll try to go fast.
You got it. A recent song that is like your jam right now, one that you like or that pumps you up.
You're going to laugh. It's Gummy Bear. The kids' song, Gummy Bear.
I like it. Well, you do have
we rock out to our 3-year-old twins. We rock out in the car. So there you go. First thing that popped into my head. Truth.
A favorite food that is not a dessert.
French fries.
A favorite dessert.
Croissants.
An activity you wish you did more of.
Run.
An activity you wish you did less of.
Read emails.
If I were to snap my fingers, Helen, and you can go anywhere in the world, where are you?
Paris.
Helen Dayen, here on Thrive Loud, long overdue. So great to have you on the program today. Thank you so much for taking some time and unplugging with us here.
Thanks, Lou. This was so fun. And it was great to see you again.
Absolutely. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.